There we go. Hey, good evening and welcome this evening. So tonight we have Greg Bekker from Agriculture Victoria speaking with us about water budgeting on your farm. This is part of a farm dam project that we're currently running. We've got 20 landholders involved in monitoring dams, and we're measuring evaporation of dams and how native vegetation planted around dams can influence that evaporation rate. Yeah, so as part of that, we'll be running a few little webinars and workshops, and Greg has said he'll speak with us this evening about, water budgeting. So I'll pass over to you, Greg. Thanks.
Thank you, Kim, and welcome along, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to turn off my camera, and if people are having trouble viewing this, if you turn your video camera off, sometimes you get better streaming and better quality. Take control of the screen. And hopefully now, Kim, you're seeing the first page of managing your farm water supply. Yes, yep. Good. Just make sure that changes, please, to the current situation.
Yep.
Okay, good. So my name's Greg Bekker. I work with Agriculture Victoria, based in the Benalla office when we're not under covert, and basically work a lot in this water space and have done for the last 10 or 15 years. And I also head up AgVic's water technical reference group. So the last couple of droughts been heavily involved in how do farmers get through these situations, and providing drought advice and those sort of things. At the moment, and as this slide shows the current situation, nearly everybody's dam's full. We're probably having one of the best springs lots of people can remember, and we're getting record prices for stock. So things are looking very good at the moment. But after saying that, we all know that there is another dry spell around the corner, and the aim of tonight's webinar is to go through some of the fundamental things that people need to do in terms of their water situations on their property. Okay, you will see my email address and phone number, always available to talk through situations. I will also be getting out with Kim, and we'll be running some in the paddock things early next year, hopefully. So what are we going to talk about today? Fundamentally is calculating your water requirements, measuring your water storage, how to do a water budget. We've got some online tools. You can do them in Excel spreadsheets. You can do them on the back of an envelope if you're pretty good with maths. I'm going to show you a tool that you can all make if you've got a bit of a hand line and a float, so that you can accurately measure your dam. Most people guess how deep their dam is, and just some of the things that you might consider doing for the next dry spell, depending on your water situation. So when we do a farm water budget, and we now use that as a water budget, the same as you do a budget for your household, you do a budget for your food, you would do a feed budget if you have got stock, the banker after budget. So we now want people to do a water budget, and then we know what we're dealing with rather than guessing. It's very hard to make informed decisions when you're saying, I've got lots of water, no, I haven't got much, I've only got a puddle, you know, those sorts of terms. Okay, particularly when you've got livestock, and we have a responsibility, if we do have livestock, to make sure that they do have good, clean drinking water and they have access to it all year round, particularly going through the summers and that sort of thing. What do we use water for, and how does it come to us? Well, basically we've got our springs, rivers, creeks. We have catchment runoff, so that's the area above the dam that runs, the water runs from that catchment into the dam. Some of our best catchments are roofs, because we don't lose anything off the roofs. We've also have towns, water and mains. Some people have had to cart water. The other one that's come into the fore has been community pipelines, where we have pressurised pipelines for stock and domestic. And that's really what I'm talking about tonight, people, is stock and domestic, rather than large-scale irrigation. How do we store water? Well, predominantly we store water in dams historically. Some really big inroads have been made in the last 10 years with tanks. You know, we can now get 200,000 litre, half a megalitre and up to a megalitre storage tanks quite readily. And then what do we use that water for? Stock, our gardens, your household, firefighting, environmental, and our losses, which are still uses, evaporation and seepage, are two big losses or uses that I don't think a lot of people really understand. This is the on-farm water calculator. Go to Google or any of your search engines, just type on-farm water calculator. It will come up with this. So Agriculture Victoria have two of these. We've got the farm water calculator, which does the total farm calculations. And we have another one called the summer water calculator. Now they're designed for two very different things. The summer water calculator is going into summer and we haven't got a lot of water in our dams, and you're worried about, have I got enough water, A, to get me through, or is there enough water for those stock? This will do the simple calculations for that dam and the amount of animals and number of stock you've got in that paddock. It also takes into consideration evaporation, because over the summer period, we'll be losing between 8 and 14 millimetres per day of evaporation. And that's it's the biggest user is evaporation. So while you might think you've got a lot of water in your dam, you're going to lose a fair bit with evaporation. So this is the farm water calculator, and that's what it looks like. And there's some tabs across the top here in terms of your use, your supply, your storage, summary and finish. The beauty with this is it's done all the calculations behind the scenes, and all you've got to do is put your numbers in there. So, you know, the square meterage of your roofs, the size of your tanks, how many square metres of garden you have, and it will come up with some figures for you in terms of your total farm water budget. So that's available. If people get in there and they're getting stuck, as I said, give me a call. I've walked hundreds of people through this so that we could end up with figures for your water budget. And it's a bit like, you know, you'd go to an accountant to do these sort of things. We don't have the expectation is that you will just know automatically how to do this stuff. So assistance is there to help. It'll give you an annual balance. You can pick where you are, because evaporation, as I said, is a very important usage, and it looks at your rainfall and the evaporation for the year. And as you can see, in this one, Alexandra, 1,350 millimetres is the pan evaporation for Alexandra. And then it goes into the different types of livestock you've got: sheep, cattle, horses, other alpacas, goats. And then the subcategory would be whether it's a ewe in lamb, whether it's a ewe in lamb with twins, etc. And you can put the number and it'll work out how many megalitres per year for those different animals. So both the type of animal and the class of animal is considered. That's a bit of history. So 2017 and 2018, the last dry spell, and really that's the runoff events that we had during those years. And when you look at that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rainfall events or that actually caused us some runoff. So they were the only times we actually got runoff into our dams, which is why in end of 2018 and 2019, lots of dams are looking pretty ordinary. Okay, that is something that they're forecasting to happen more and more, and that's the reason why we're just not getting the runoff into our dams. We're also getting these much greater intensity and storm events. and that can be both good from you get the rainfall, but it also means you may have floods and all those sorts of things. But there is the potential to cash in, I guess, or if you get one of those events over your place, that you maximise that potential in terms of storage and those types of things. Here's a couple of graphs. One's from Rutherglen, one's from Bendigo, which shows the average evaporation per month in June, July, and the winter times. Not surprising, very little, but it clearly shows that November, December, January, February, we have above 200 millimetres of evaporation per month, which is why we get to that sort of over a metre of evaporation during the summertime. So we just need to really remember how much use evaporation is for us and the impact it has. How much water do you have? So your water sources are your rainfall, roof surfaces, creeks, bores. Some of you may have multiple of these. Some of you may only have one. Okay. The challenge for us is if we only have one source, how reliable is it? And what does that mean to our property, to our farm business, to our lifestyle, and that type of thing. So that's one of the things we'll talk about towards the end. If you've only got one source, what can you look at doing to improve that water and how you can maintain to have some. Okay, so the first thing we need to go is measure how big our dams are and what size they are. So there's both the size of the dam, but what we're really interested in is the capacity in terms of how much water they will hold. I've been doing this for about 25 years. There's some very good people who are very good at estimating how much water they've got, but until you actually start measuring and taking these calculations, you don't really know. Right? This is a very, what I call a rule of thumb, which works to give you an indication. It's the volume is 0.4 by the surface area by the depth. And I'll show you in a minute why the depth is so critical. If you use the online calculators, there's more sophisticated maths has been involved in determining that. So you can do both of these. You will get variations in the numbers, but they're better than your best guess. So first thing we need to do is measure the surface area at the water level, not at the top of the bank, because that's not where the water is, at the water level. So now's a good time to be measuring your dams, because that I would say would be what I'd call full capacity, and measure the length, measure the width, and then you need to measure how deep it is as well. Okay, so that was for an oval dam. Here's for a rectangle or square dam. And then for a triangle or gully dam where you've got a head wall, it's a different calculation. It's the length by the width divided by 2, because it's effectively a triangle. And there's a rectangle dam that's been plastic lined due to huge seepage issues. That was leaking about 5 millimetres per day in seepage through the soil. Here's the calculations, and what I wanted to show people here was we've got 2 dams, both 30 metres by 20 metres, which you can see the length by the width, and then you ask the person what's the depth, and it's 2 metres, it's 2.5 metres. Okay, so you do the calculations, you've got 600 square metres of surface area, and that equates to 600 metres cubed, which is 0.6 of a megalitre. The dam was actually 2 metres deep, not 2.5. So in reality, there's only 0.48 megalitres there, a difference of 0.12 of a megalitre, and if that's a substantial amount of water when you're looking for stock or for fires coming into the summer. So getting that figure right is quite important. There's some other tools around. So this is a sonar buoy that you can use to actually measure the depth of your dam. The beauty with this, and that's me taking a photo of it, is it also has the ability to pick up the base. So this is the actual bottom of the dam. And this is some work I did, when's this here, 2016. This farmer thought he had 5 megalitres of water in his dam, but in actual fact, he had nearly 2 metres of sediment. So 2.3 was his dam depth, and all of that sediment there was obviously taking water capacity. So instead of having 5 megalitres of water, he really only had 2.8, 2.9 megalitres because of the sediment. So in some dams where people haven't seen the bottoms, we don't know that. Dam maintenance, really important. I love this photo because you can just see the look on the person's face of what am I going to do now? And a lot of this stuff is caused by lack of maintenance and basically with the not maintaining the freeboard, so that the overflow builds up. There's a little bit more water in the dam, then there's a little bit more water in the dam, and what happens is the forces involved blow out through the dam bank, and unfortunately we go to too many of these where that's exactly what's happened. And sometimes it blows out the bottom, but most of the time it's midway up the bank wall. There's a whole lot of science and forces involved where the actual water forces come from, which is why you have that 0.5 of a metre of freeboard on your dam, so that the forces transferred back down to the base, not halfway up the wall, which is where they transfer if you don't keep things maintained and well maintained. So that tends to happen when you least want it. Going into summer, instead of starting the summer with 5 megalitres, you start the summer with 1 megalitre in the bottom of your dam because the dam wall's blown out. Not ideal. So once again, I think it's 1 in 3, 1 in 4 dams fail in the Golden Broken catchment. So it's something that happens all too often, and it's mainly due to maintenance and management. Sometimes it's poor construction, but very rarely. I'm just going to show you something that I've developed, and I'm a bit of a mad keen fisherman and trying to come up with a tool that we can actually measure these dams. I know Kim's, and I've discussed this with Kim and talked with her, and she's made one herself. So I'm just going to quickly show you a video, and I will do that. Can you just confirm, Kim, you're seeing that video, please?
Yep, seeing that now. Yep.
Okay, so this is basically with a hand line. So you just buy a hand line with 10 or 15 pound fishing line. You need a float, some little beads with holes in them. All of this is readily available at any fishing tackle shop and that sort of stuff. And you can see you're basically threading a couple of beads on the top, then the float, then another bead, and then some sort of sinker, weight, whatever the case may be.
That's paused on my end, Greg. There it goes.
What I'll do here is we will put a link to a YouTube video on this so people can watch this via a YouTube link, which will should make it much smoother, Kim. Okay, so
yep, good.
I'm catching up with Brad, a work colleague, tomorrow, and we're putting that onto the YouTube channel. So
yep. Sounds good. I'll pop the link up. Yeah, fantastic.
All right. So effectively, this is making something with a bead on the top of the float so that when you throw it into the water, the float effectively stays on the water surface and the lead weight hits the bottom and the bead stays on the fishing line. And then when you pull it back in, you can measure the distance from that bead to the lead weight or sinker, and that'll give you a pretty good indication as to how deep it is at that point. And obviously what we would suggest is you throw this in a dozen times and get an average for your dam depth. Okay. Is that moving better for you, Kim, or it's freezing still?
Yeah, it's still frozen on mine. Yep.
Okay. All right. Is there anybody who'd like to make a comment? John, are you seeing it?
Yeah, I've got the same as Kim, Greg. It's just pausing a lot.
Yep.
But I mean, I get the principle anyway. That's okay.
Yep. Okay. Well, yeah, that was the idea. Was just the principle. We'll get the detail of it via a YouTube channel. Just haven't got to that stage at this point in time, unfortunately. Okay, so are people seeing, Kim, are you seeing some tanks now?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. And I'll just check from time to time because I've had it happen before. I've been busily talking and changing slides, but that hasn't been happening with everybody else. All right. So as I said, this is what's been happening over a period of time. More and more tanks are coming online, and people are putting more and more tanks in line, so that they started with 22,000 litres, and then they go to 44 and 66, and now they're able to store 100,000 litres of water in their tanks. And I'm a big advocate of people buying tanks. Rainwater off your roofs is a very good water, so you can put it through your house system for running your household. It's also very good that in terms of the harvestability, you get about a 98% yield off your roof. And I think in this day and age, water is a commodity that we just need to be saving and utilise as best we can, particularly when you've got large houses with large machinery sheds or shearing sheds and that type of thing. And it's not that hard to have 0.5 megalitre of water in rainfall very easily. So here's some example of what people are doing. They're just retrofitting any sort of sheds with tanks. What's interesting is people sort of think, oh, I'll just put a 22,000 litre tank on it. But then when we do the maths of it and find out, well, you can actually put a 50,000 litre tank, and guess what? In 12 months or 18 months, it's full. So doing those sums, and I know it costs money and everything does, but you have to sort of write this off over the 15 to 20 year life of the tank. And then when you break it down into a yearly basis, it comes back to sort of $500 or $600 a year to have that amount of water. And I guess when you're in a drought situation or you don't have the water, then what's that value to you? I think last time I got water delivered, it was about $400 for 22,000 litres. So it gets very expensive if you have to cart it in. So there's just some examples of more water being stored, okay, in terms of tanks and rainfall. We have some really smart things around now in terms of meters with smartphones and those sort of things, which link back to your phone, and it will tell you what levels in your tank. It'll tell you whether there's any major leaks and that type of thing. So there is some really good technology that can assist people with both monitoring, but also even managing your water. It has the ability to link up to solenoids, start pumps, run sprinkler systems, all those sorts of things. So, we should be using technology to assist us in our water management where we possibly can. That's just another example of, some people understanding the size and the roof area that they've got and the appropriate tanks and water storage for that. Okay, that's for the farm. So what are we trying to, I just want to go to this farm dams. So the other thing in terms of dams and those sort of things, when we're starting to get low levels in our dams, if they've got stock access and those sort of things, we start to lose stock, we get pugging, we get lots of nutrient in the water, so water quality deteriorates rapidly. And really maybe one of the options is that we just pump those last bits of water out into our header tank and then gravity feed it to troughs. So reticulation systems for animals is really coming to the fore. We don't have animals in dams. We have the ability to fence them out. We have the ability to put vegetation around them in the correct place, maybe looking at minimising evaporation. Anything we can do to minimise wind across the dam is going to help because that decreases surface area. So looking at water reticulation systems will assist us in saving water as well, and makes for better, healthier stock and ease of management. I'm just looking for, that's what I'm looking for. One of the things to do is to increase the size of your dam, but we have to be very careful there because we can't just go around increasing the size of our dams and catching more water. Okay, the catchment has enough issues with water getting to its creeks and waterways and wetlands and rivers. So we just can't go around increasing our dam capacities and harvesting more water. That's why doing this budget and working out how much water you actually really need, and then, you know, saving that is really all that you need for your property. Okay. So in some cases, yes, increasing your dam capacity may be an option, but we need to look at some of those other options as well. There's some of the things in terms of putting in water reticulation systems, and that's a whole new discussion to have, but some of the things, you know, we need to be looking at peak demand. We need to look at friction, flow rates, air valves, capacity for the future. So that's something for the future, but they're some of the things that we need to think about. And quite often it is people don't even know some of these things, and you go out and just buy some 1-inch poly pipe and it's never going to do the job for you. So this has been going on for 30 or 40 years. I think I put my first dairy farm 2-inch system in 1980. So it's been around a long time, and we really have, if you do it right, there's some really good results you can get out of certainly water reticulation systems. Desalination is another option you can look at, and using bore water or underground water. And we used to have to put a bore down, and if it wasn't good quality water, then we couldn't do anything with it. We have the option now in terms of using desalination to do that. That is an option. It's quite costly, and there's a whole lot of discussions to be had around that. I guess one of the critical ones is your desal plants run all the time, so you don't just turn them on when you run out of water. Something to consider. We have things called roaded catchments, so where we want to increase the yield of water off a paddock, we can put some gradient on. We can make sure we've got suitable soil types with heavy clay, so we get that 10 or 12% yield, rather than at the moment lots of our catchments are only yielding 2 or 3%. That's something that is potentially being looked at with the right soil types, with the right gradient. And the last thing we want to do is create an erosion problem. So once again, investigating that properly. So these are just some of the options or things to look at for improving your water security. So what are some of the long-term other things that you can do? Well, we know providing shade for stock means that they're going to use less water. As I've said, improve water reticulation systems, start looking at doing that fencing off dams, reducing our losses from dams, both through evaporation, seepage and wind. There's been some work done with, you know, covers and things across dams. It's basically hasn't been cost effective, but that's because I think water hasn't had a true value, and who knows what the future will bring. And I guess here's the question: is water recycling an option? Is that something that's going to happen on farm or within you know, farming systems and those sorts of things? So one of the key messages from this evening is you really need to calculate how much water you need. So what is it you need for your business? And that includes when it hasn't rained for a year, how much water you can store, how long your water will last. So have you got enough, you know, to last you through a 6-month dry spell for your farming business? And I guess consider the options to ensure your livestock have sufficient good quality water at all time. And if you've got animals and you've got small acreage or whatever, you're responsible for those animals, and a part of that is having good, clean, quality water for them. Okay? You need to plan for your future of your farming business, and as I said at the start, water is now a line item for farming businesses and very important and needs to be considered. And there is plenty of assistance out there, both with us at Agriculture Victoria, but plenty of plumbing supplies and others have some good information around water and how to use it wisely. There's some of the booklets and some of the information we have currently available. Some of those are in a written and hard copy. If you want to send me an email, then I can get copies of those to you. It's a bit challenging at the moment not being in the office. And there's also some websites and YouTube videos that are well worth having a look at. Okay. So if there's any questions, I'll take them now. Otherwise, Kim, thank you very much. And I'll hand back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Greg. That was really good. Yeah, I know Mark came in a bit late, and you did mention that you're available to help with people if they're wanting to do a water budget for their farm. Yeah, and so if people would like Greg's details, I can help you with that.
Yep, that's what we're there for, to help people. So
yeah,
more than happy.
I'm actually looking at myself on your screen right now, Greg.
Is that better?
Oh, not yet.
I've got my camera on.
Yeah, might just have a little bit of a delay. There you are. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions for Greg?
Not really, but thanks very much, Greg. It was really interesting stuff. I mean, I don't have animals and wasn't intending to have animals on our small acreage, but to just increase the variety of natural animals and flora around the dam that we can. So, but it's really interesting to know about the depth and the amount of water. I've often wondered how to do it, and you've certainly enlightened me on that. So we'll give that a go. I'm a fisherman as well, so I'll dig out some old floats and some line and try it.
Yeah. Well, you'll work it out very quickly. And the trick is you might need it's those little beads. Like I just use the fluoro beads, the same ones I use for my snapper fishing. And you might need 3 passes. It's so that it'll still slide up the line, but it'll hold on the line, and you'll work that out.
Yeah.
It seems to work quite well. I've sort of made a dozen of them up and got them out there. So
yeah, I did wonder. Our dam is kind of kidney shaped. It's not a square one. It's not a triangular one. It's nothing regular. And we know it's shallow at one end and it grades down from the edges. So we'll have to try and average out the measurements to figure what the actual capacity is.
Yep. And if you've got a wall as such, then I would use the gully wall or a triangle as your rudimentary figure, because your shallow edges, it'll go from shallow to quite deep. So that would be my sort of method without seeing it. I mean, the other thing we can do is I've done, John, is with some photos and using Google Earth, you can actually do some interesting, measurements and that sort of stuff too.
Yeah.
We have actually been out and surveyed them when it's critical, but we don't tend to do that very often.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
I know there was some dams we were monitoring that our measuring tape wasn't large enough for, and so we have used Google Earth, and it's worked quite well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you not have to watch that for how much water was actually in the dam at the time Google Earth took the pictures?
Yeah.
That is true.
Another little thing, one of the tools I've got, Kim, is I Oh, it's a thing for measuring distances. Like the builders now have one that'll go to 100 metres. Mine will go anywhere between 10 and 600 because I use it for other things. But it's plus or minus a metre. Wasn't cheap at the time. It was $350 odd, but it means you can take these accurate measurements, get somebody to stand on the water level, and then run the thing off their leg or whatever the case may be. So there's some good things out there that'll help you to take these accurate measurements. Yeah.
Fantastic.
I'll have to remember to bring that out with me when we do some of these farm walks and measure them.
Yeah. No, it'll be really good to get you out in the field on this, Greg. It was a good introduction to this, and I know there's a lot of people that are keen to learn about reticulation systems that I've been talking to and would like to talk to you about that out in the field. So that'll be good.
Okay.
Can I just ask one more question before you go? Just with some of the farm dams around us, we've got some local farmers who fence off their dams from the stock and pump the water out to troughs, and others that don't. And I just wondered if you'd any figures on how much better the quality of the water is or whatever from that kind of activity.
The only figures, unfortunately, come from beef and sheep feedlots, because there hasn't been a study done where they've compared growth rates and all that sort of thing in dam water versus trough water. However, what we do know anecdotally is that animals will walk past the dam to drink out of a trough, and that's heaps of farmers will tell you that. And there also is some evidence to say that growth rates and all that sort of thing with the water quality is improved, as well as you don't tend to have liver fluke issues because the animals aren't in that wet, boggy area, particularly in the wintertime, and those sort of things. So there's some animal health issues as well as water quality issues, and just the simple, particularly when water levels are decreasing, your nitrates, your salt levels are increasing because there's less water, and then you also have feces contamination, so the likelihood of blue-green algae and all that sort of stuff's increased as well.
So there's a bunch of benefits from it, and I would also think it would potentially help the farm to be slightly more productive in the same way as regenerative agriculture, where you seem to plant more perhaps some native species at different levels around your farm, but the farmers seem to have been able to increase production in the remaining land, even if it's less. So what we've seen in local farm dams around us is more bird life and shrubs appearing around the sides of the dams, which for most things, unless they're great big trees that cause root problems, is surely a good thing.
Yeah, there's more benefits. There's a couple of challenges. There is a cost in doing it. There is an element of management in it, because you now have, it's not the same as letting all of your animals down into a dam and that they can get access to water and drink. So there is some other issues for it. And I guess that then gets back to the farmers, risk management, what it is they're trying to do, what stocking rate they've got, what pasture systems, and all that sort of stuff. As soon as people are starting to get more into this, effective pasture management, whatever that may look like, you need to have multiple water sources, and that's when water reticulation comes to the fore, because you can't, go and dig multiple dams to meet their water requirements and that sort of stuff. So that's where it really comes into its own, and there's plenty of evidence and people out there, recognising that pastures, whatever they may look like, need a rest phase, both from your natives to your annuals to your exotics and those sort of things. But we all know that they do need a rest phase.
Mm.
So, yep. Righto.
Awesome. Fantastic.
You can go back and have a wine.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Thank you. Nice to meet you, John.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Good on you.
Cheers for now.
Have a nice evening. Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.